Thomas Shanahan entered the world on August 19, 1946, in Spokane, Washington, to parents Stanley Paul and Jean Lois Caron. Stanley had a history of minor criminal offenses and spent some time in jail. Meanwhile, Jean found love again and married Jared Thomas, who adopted her daughters, Janet and Jane. Together, they welcomed 2 sons, Jared and Timothy. Janet, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed honor student, attended Willamette High School in Eugene, Oregon, where she was highly involved in various enrichment activities such as the drama club, art guild, and the newspaper. During her senior year, she was celebrated as prom queen and named Girl of the Year. Those who knew her described Janet as vibrant, well-liked, and someone who had a large group of friends. Following her high school graduation in 1964, she began working part-time at a credit card company and started her education at the University of Oregon, with the ambition of becoming a junior high school teacher someday. On May 24, 1968, Janet married her college classmate, Christopher John Shanahan. On the night of Monday, April 21st, 1969, Janet went to a night class and made a quick stop at home before heading out around 9:30 p.m. to celebrate her younger brother's 15th birthday at her parents' house. According to reports, Christopher Shanahan was feeling sick and stayed in bed at home. After the festivities wrapped up around 11 p.m., Janet took a 30-minute break with Jane, who had recently located back to her parents' home in Eugene, to visit the nearby Linwood Cafe for a meal. After the girls had their meal, they visited a nearby convenience store to pick up a car magazine for Janet's husband. When they were done, Janet drove her sister back to their parents' house. At 8 a.m. the following day, Chris Shanahan found that his wife had not yet returned home. Concern grew when she did not arrive for her 1 p.m. job at a credit card company, prompting him to file a missing persons report. On the morning of April 23rd, 1969, Christopher contacted his sister-in-law, seeking her assistance in retracing the steps of Janet from the evening she disappeared, in hopes of finding her 1951 Plymouth coupe. Just after 9:40 a.m., having looked for a mere 10 minutes, they found the coupe in a ditch in an industrial section near a lumber mill, less than 2 miles from her parents' home on Cross Street at the intersection of Roosevelt Boulevard and Maple Street. Employees at the nearby lumber mill indicated that the vehicle had been present from around 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. the previous morning. The keys were not found, but Chris successfully opened the trunk, revealing Janet's body, who had been strangled to death. Following the discovery of Janet's body, Chris reached out to the police using a payphone close by. He then dropped Jane off at her residence and quickly proceeded to meet with his attorney. At first, he worked with the police after his wife was found. Shanahan told detectives he had been on a desperate search for her. However, in truth, he was engaged in ordinary activities like studying and getting new tires for his car. The night before her discovery, he was spotted out drinking beer and playing pool. Following April 25th, 1969, he ceased reaching out to the police for updates regarding his wife's death. He also left the area soon after and relocated to Connecticut, where he continues to live as of 2025. Janet was dressed completely with the exception of her shoes, which were discovered beside her. Whilst there was no apparent signs of a struggle, it was subsequently established that she had been violated. Detectives have spent years interviewing numerous friends, family members, schoolmates, and acquaintances of Shanahan, yet they have achieved little progress. The failure to properly store genetic evidence in the 1960s has left them without any DNA samples related to Janet's murder. Thus, they are largely depending on public tips to advance the investigation into her case. Detective Drew Tracy, who specializes in cold cases, remarked, "We have already done a pretty thorough investigation, and we have our thoughts, but thoughts do not convict people." In 1996, a detective, while on the East Coast for another case, tracked down Chris Shanahan in New Milford, Connecticut, intending to talk about his wife's murder. However, Shanahan's demeanor had shifted entirely. He reacted with anger and hostility, refusing to engage with the detective and insisting that all communications go through his lawyer. Initially, investigators aimed to associate Janet's murder with the strangulation deaths of two other women in Eugene. Linda Dawn Sally, age 19, who was murdered on April 23, 1969, and 18-year-old Karen Elena Sprinker, 19, who was killed on March 27, 1969. It was later confirmed that both were victims of the serial killer Jerry Brudos. On June 27, 1969, Brudos entered a guilty plea for 3 counts of first-degree murder, resulting in 3 consecutive life sentences with the possibility of parole at the Oregon State Penitentiary. Despite multiple attempts to appeal his conviction, he was unsuccessful and succumbed to liver cancer in 2006. Janet's father, Stanley Caron, died shortly after her murder at the age of 52 on June 10, 1969. Her mother, Jean, passed away on December 4, 1979, and her stepfather, Jared Thomas, died on May 5, 2009. Now 79 years old, Christopher Shanahan lives in New Milford, Connecticut. He has never remarried and has not been cleared in the case of his wife's murder. In recent times, family and friends have reached out to investigators with the intention of providing a reward. They prefer to remain anonymous, but share the belief, similar to that of current investigators, that with 56 years having passed, time is of the essence. This may be the final opportunity to uncover the identity of the suspect and resolve the case. As a result, Janet's loved ones are offering a reward of $45,000 for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of her murderer. The cold case team is convinced that all tips are valuable. If you possess any information pertinent to the case, please contact the Eugene Police Cold Case Squad at 541-682-5588 or drop a message at